Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to the shop. Well, today we're going to show you how to do single flares, double flares, and bubble flares. So, first thing you want to do is grab a chunk of brake line, and you're going to want to square off the end and get the line prepped. So we're going to take our cutter, and you just go until it stops. Give it a few turns, turn in the knob a little bit more, and a little more, just little bits at a time. Don't squash it too hard, because you don't want to screw up that end on here completely, so you want to make sure it's a good clean cut. Most of these cutters have built-in reamers on them, which we're going to do next. Okay, so take the reamer at the back, and you're just going to clean all the crud out of that hole, because you don't want your die to get stuck in the line. You also want a good clean hole to work with. So this is 3/16 brake line. So we're going to put her in the 3/16 hole. Now to set your height for this, you got this little ridge on the die here, and you're going to set it to this bottom ridge for the height. Just wiggle that down till you're even, and then tighten it in place. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do, we're going to put the die in the hole. So we're going to start out with a double flare first. Now another thing you're going to want to do, just to make sure you get a good flare out of this, you're going to want to put a couple drops of oil on there. Well, brake fluid, that is. For this demonstration, we're just going to use oil. But normally you'd use brake fluid only. And we get that centered in there. And then you're going to want to turn this until the die bottoms out. The other thing that's important too is to make sure that your holder is even when it closes, because otherwise it'll mess up your flare as well. Okay, so we're down. Take that out. Now, put this back, die out of the way. And you're just going to squash this until the flare gets even with the outside edge here. You don't want to over squash it, because this is a double walled flare. That should be about it. there is your double flare. So the next flare we're going to do is going to be a single. Now this you won't ever see in brake lines, but you may see it in some hydraulic systems. You'd also see it in furnace piping. You'll also see a single flare being used, and at times double flares too. If you're not doing a high pressure system, then you can also use a single flare as opposed to a double. But you need the double flare in your brake lines because it's hydraulic and it's under a lot of pressure. So you don't want that seal to leak at all. Okay, so again, ream out the hole. Now this is going to be the same deal. You're going to set it to the die height. You don't want to over tighten this, but you got to make sure it's tight, make sure it's level. Now this time we're not using the die. This time we're just going to straight squash her down. And there you have a single flare. A little different than a double flare. Okay, so we'll put this kit away. And it's not very hard. It takes a little bit of practice to do these, but it really isn't all that hard to do. And again, you're going to nip the end off of this. Ream the hole. Okay, so this time what we're going to do is we're going to do what's called a bubble flare, which is a little bit different. Now this is a metric bubble flare. So for this we're going to be using the 4.7. Even though this is a 3/16 line, you normally would use a metric line, but you can use standard line in this. It's no big deal at all. And 4.75. Now this kind of a die system screws in to the press, and then you take your bar, and there's a wrench end on here. We use this. I'm going to tighten this up. Make sure it's on there. Now to set your height with these, they have a cutout notch. So you're going to set it to the cutout notch. Okay, and again, make sure these come across flat. So even if you're having to do this freehand, make sure that these are as even as possible. If they're off center a little bit, it will still hold. So you don't have to worry too much. It's not that massively critical, but it is still critical that you get it as even as possible across. Otherwise, it's going to off-shape your flare too much. So again, a little bit of oil on here. Get this on there as centered as possible and as even. And then you go until it bottoms right out. Now if you are off angle, it is going to bottom out a lot sooner. So, and like I said, it should hold fine. I've never ever had an issue if it was just slightly off. You know, so it doesn't have to be absolutely 100% perfect as much as you'd like it to be. With these kind of brake line kits, they don't get to 100% perfection, as we'd say. There are other kits for flaring that will get a lot better results. But even for home users, do-it-yourselfers, these kits are more than adequate. They're definitely safe. I use them many times, even on my own vehicles, and I've never ever once had an issue or a leak. So, you know, you don't necessarily have to buy for $300 or $400 or $500 flaring kit just to do the brake lines on your vehicle. And this one actually turned out, well, I give her about 95%. So this is your ISO metric bubble flare. So that's how you do a single flare, a double flare, and a bubble flare. So thanks for watching. We look forward to your comments, and we'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.